Honorable Carl Russell Slater, Honorable Charlene So, Honorable Charlene So, Honorable Daniel E. So.
I'm present.
Thank you, sir. Honorable Edison J. Wanika.
Here.
Thank you. Honorable Charlene So. Chair, you have 5 members. I see Honorable Charlene So on the screen, but I think she's having technical difficulties. So right now I got 5 members on. 4. Constitute a quorum, sir.
Thank you, committee members, Otto, everybody that's on the call. Thank you for being present to the committee meeting. I'll call on Honorable Pernell Halona to provide the invocation for us.
Good morning, Chairman. Thanks for the opportunity. Good morning to all my colleagues, committee members, and to all the callers that are on the line. A very quick prayer here for our committee meeting. Thank you, Lord Jesus, for this wonderful day. Thank you for bringing us together here to take care of the business of the Navajo Nation. We ask for your guidance, Lord. We ask for your patience. We ask that you help us to make the right decisions to benefit our people and to move forward with all our projects all across the Navajo Nation.
I think last time we had introduction, so I don't think.
Can somebody leave their phone, please?
I'm in the meeting with the head right now, but that's okay. I can, because there's a quorum, so without me, so I don't really have to worry about getting back over that right away. So, but
Mr. Mose, am I still on?
Yeah, you still on, sir?
Oh, okay. I guess I'll start over. I heard Mr. Wanika there. Okay, so Lord, thank you for this wonderful day again, and thank you for blessing us here today. We also want to recognize our veterans all across the United States, as well as co-talkers. Our co-talker day is coming up in a couple of weeks here, so we want to recognize them. We also want to thank all the veterans for this wonderful freedom that we share across the reservation and the nation. We also want to thank all the elderlies out there who are taking care of their grandkids and raising their children to be successful and productive individuals for the Navajo Nation. Lord, we ask all these blessings in your name, and we ask for more moisture, Lord. Thank you for the moisture that you have given Mother Earth, and we just need a little bit more. For the animals, the trees, they all need water today. So Lord, we ask that you help us today to move forward with all our decisions that we need to make, and that we are all in agreement, and that we can be successful for the Navajo people. I ask all these blessings in the name of Lord Jesus Christ and this committee. Amen. Chairman.
Thank you. Wonderful.
No, it's under Jim. It's not under your name, is it? It's under Jim, Floorline.
Good morning. Again, thank you for that invocation, Honorable Haluna. Auto committee members, do we have any announcements? We do have budget hearings starting on the 4th, 5th, and 6th. The chair will provide statement and testimony to the interim Indian Affairs Committee of the New Mexico Legislature at 2 p.m. on August 5th. We do have a call for a leadership meeting on August 4th, where a good number of the Navajo Nation Council will be convening in a leadership meeting with OPVP. With that, committee members, do you have any other announcements?
Mr. Chair, this is Angelita Benally.
Go ahead, Ms. Benali.
And thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee. Because of the August 4th meeting between OPVP and the Navajo Nation Council, the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee is going to be beginning their budget oversight hearings on August 5th, on Thursday.
Everybody's going to go.
You're with us, right?
Yeah.
I'm saying that we can just be somewhere in D.C.
Nila, I'm just following now.
He's on a meeting.
Okay. Are you guys in the BNF conference room? Ms. Honorable Begay and Honorable Halona? Or are you already at Twin Arrows?
Delegate Begay is at home.
Okay. Good. Okay. So let's
Mr.
just
Chair,
go
Mr. Chair, I believe Mr. Leonard Mose is set up in the Navajo Nation Council chambers.
Yes, I'm here with
No.
him.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So,
Chair, this is Alona.
go ahead, Honorable Halona.
Yeah, just a quick announcement. Chair, we're here in Washington, D.C. at the, actually it's Virginia, Quantico, Virginia. And the flag raising ceremony and dedication for the Navajo Nation Code Talkers building there is complete. Everything went well. And so we're honored Code Talkers this morning. So I just want to make that announcement. That's where I'm at now today. We're flying back tomorrow morning. I was hoping you got my message. I texted you a message, so. That's my announcement, sir. Thank you.
Okay, I didn't get a text message from you, but safe travels. With that,
Yeah.
we'll go to item number 2, recognize guests and visiting officials. Could we have the folks on the teleconference line introduce themselves?
Good morning, Chair, committee members. This is Michelle from Navajo Department of Health. Good morning.
Good morning. Anybody else?
Yate Pene, Chair, the HES Committee. This is Chad Beta from Office of Legislative Counsel. Good morning.
Oh, God, Chair.
Good morning, Chair. This is Lauren Bernelli with the Navajo Nation Human Rights Commission.
Good morning, Khadijah.
Good morning, Health, Education, Human Services Committee. Yat Ehebene. This is Pat Ghani from Department of Diné Education.
Oh, Yaja, thank you for calling in. Anybody else? If not, let's go into item number 3, review and adopt the agenda. Ms.
Chair.
Oh,
Oh,
Honorable
I just wanted to
Carl
make sure.
Slater.
Yeah, I realized I was on mute. I was trying to interject in here and just let you know that I'm on the line. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have Honorable Charlene so unmuted too? Okay. Full membership of the HES committees on the call. Thank you, colleagues. Ms. Benali, can you do the item number 4, review and adopt the agenda?
yes, Mr. Chair, we have another advisor who's new to Office of Legislative Services. His name is Mr. Rodney Tahi, and he's going to be assisting the HES committee. I will be online.
Chair, this is Rodney Tahi. I'm going to read the agenda. The proposed agenda for health education.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you.
All right, the proposed agenda for the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee.
Mr. Tahi, introduce yourself to the committee.
Yes, my name is Rodney Tahi. I'm Kiani and Senchikine. As Ms. Burnell, as Angelita did mention earlier, I am the new employee here for Office of Legislative Services. I am the new legislative advisor. This is my 3rd week on the job, so I'm still learning everything as I go along.
Okay.
All right, so I'll read the agenda.
Go ahead.
The proposed agenda for Health, Education, and Human Services Committee, the 24th Navajo Nation Council Special Meeting, scheduled for August 2nd, 2001 at 10 a.m. Presiding is Honorable Daniel E. Sosi, Chairperson, Honorable Carl R. Slater, Vice Chair. Place is via telecommunications. Number 1, call the meeting to order, roll call, invocation, announcements. Number 2, recognizing guests and visiting officials. Number 3, review and adopt the agenda. Number 4, review and adopt the journals. June 16, 2001, June 23rd, 2021, June 28th, 2021, June 30th, 2021, July 12th, 2021, July 14th, 2021. Number 5, receive report. A, the implementation of the Navajo Nation education sovereignty, including implementation of the Yazzie Martinez versus the state of New Mexico. Presenters are Chad Abeda, Office of Legislative Counsel, Ron Haven, Office of Legislative Counsel, Dana Barbaroff, Chief Legislative Counsel, Patricia Ghani, Acting Superintendent of Schools, Doty, Dr. Calvin White, Education Administration Office of the Schools Improvement. B, the demolition of the Greasewood Springs Community School. Presenters are Paulson Chaco, Chief of Staff, Office of the President, Vice President, Dr. Pearling Yellowman, Executive Director, Division of Community Development. 6, old business, none. 7, new business. Legislation number 0095-21. An action relating to Health, Education, Human Services Committee recommending for the approval of the Navajo Committee the designation of the Fort Defiance Indian Hospital Board Incorporated as a Navajo Nation tribal organization for the purpose of contracting with the United States Indian Health Service and authorizing it to negotiate and enter into Title I Self-Determination Act, Public Law 93-638 as amended. Contracts in Title V, Self-Government's Compact pursuant to the Indian Self-Determination Act, Public Law 9638, as amended. Such designation of tribal organization and are being replicated and contingent on compliance of all terms and conditions as required. Sponsors, Edison Wanika, Council Delegate. Number 8, close the meeting, announcements and adjournment. The next meeting scheduled is August 4th, 2001, OPVP and NNC joint meeting at Twin Arrows Net Conference Center, August 5th through the 11th, HES fiscal year 2022 budget oversight hearing. Chair, that is the agenda as read.
Okay. Committee members, what's the wishes of the committee?
Motion.
Okay. Motion by Honorable Aldegate.
Second, Halona.
Second by Honorable Purnell Halona. Committee members, any additions, deletions to the agenda? If not, then Mr. Mose, roll call vote, please.
Morning, everyone. Honorable Paul Gay Jr.
You have to vote screen.
Paul Gay Jr. votes green. Honorable Purnell Valona.
Halona votes green.
Purnell Valona votes green. Honorable Carl Russell Slater.
Delegate Slater, green.
Honorable Carl Russell Slater votes green. Honorable Charlene So.
Green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Edison J. Wanika. Honorable Edison J. Wanika. Chair, a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay, let the record show a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed, and the chair not voting. Mr. Tahi, going forward, don't be so much in a hurry to read the agenda. Correction. Daniel So, chairperson. And then the review and adopt the agenda. Receiving report A briefing. And then you did the rest of it good. And then also B, report. And it's the demolition. And the balance of it, you did good. Thank you. We look forward to working with you, and if you do need guidance, please don't hesitate to get advice from any of the members of the committee. As we go forward, we welcome you, and we, I guess, in a lot of ways, you and I will be talking a lot as we move forward. Thank you. With that, committee members will go to review and adopting the journals. Mr. Mose.
Yes, sir. I emailed them out last Friday.
Committee members, what's the wishes to adopt June 16, June 23, June 28, June 30, July 12, July 14th?
Ms. Delegate Halona, I read them all. They seem to be in order. I would like to make a motion to accept the journals.
Okay,
Chair?
thank you.
Yeah, I read them.
Do I hear a second? Do I hear a second? There being none.
You're asking for a second, Chair? Or just
Yes.
questions?
Second.
Second, Delegate Slater.
6 journals, okay. Thank you. It's the Honorable Vice Chair. Seconds. Any discussion, addition, deletions to any of the subject journals? Going once, going twice, 3 times. Mr. Mose, roll call vote, please.
Honorable Paul Begay Jr.
Green.
Honorable Paul Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Pernell Halona.
Halona votes green.
Honorable Pernell Halona votes green. Honorable Carl Russell Slater.
Green?
Honorable Carl Russell Slater votes green. Honorable Charlene So.
Green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Edison J. Wanika. Honorable Edison J. Wanika. Chair voted 4 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you, committee members. Vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed. Chair not voting. We'll go on to 5, receiving report. A, the briefing. We have Mr. Chatabeda, who's working on legislation to support the tribal remedy framework, as well as Mr. Ron Haven. And basically, we want to see what the progress has been and what if the our panel has any questions for the committee. Mr. Abeda.
Good morning, Chair. Hello. I hope your trip to DC was good. But so far, in terms of this, the tribal remedy framework, and I'm the person that's working on it. So if I have any questions, I usually ask Mr. Haven or Ms. Barbroff, but really it's me that's handling this issue. Cool. So far, what I did is I sent 2 draft legislations to the HEF committee, and one pertains to the implementation of the tribal remedy framework. Though the second one, it pertains to the bills that are pending within the state of New Mexico. And so that resolution supports those legislations that are in the House. And then I remember you asked on the record the other day about the how this could potentially apply to Arizona. And that says, and so that way you all are aware of where I'm at. So first, it's the legislation supporting the tribal remedy framework. And so with that one, I started off, recognizing the efforts by Willema Yazi, for being a voice for Native students across New Mexico. And so, just the legislation recognizes that. And then the second one, and then I go into the all the nations within New Mexico that are supporting the tribal remedy framework. And so then I kept going into writing more and understanding more about what is the tribal remedy framework. And as far as what I've researched so far, it's pretty dense, and really what the tribal remedy framework, what it does is it places the tribal communities and the tribal government at the center of the education planning, programming, and the infrastructure. So the tribal remedy framework creates strategies for tribal nations. For tribal nations. So, like, for example, one of the strategies explains the education of Native students should be a shared responsibility, meaning that us as a nation should also give input to the state of New Mexico within their education program. And then also, so there are three strategies that it attacks the tribal remedy framework. And so I created this legislation, and it supports the tribal remedy framework initiative. And also within that resolution, I just inserted it. Also, I inserted a directive as well, because it really goes back to us, or the HES committee, to see if how we can address these things, like if there's consultation that's needed, or if there's collaboration efforts that need to be made. And so there's a directive clause in there within that legislation. So the legislation that I drafted for the tribal remedy framework, it's supporting that. And then the second one is the legislation supporting House Bill 84, 85, 86, and 87. And I got those off of the website that you have provided. And really, it addresses the funding needs, and the House bills that are presented within the New Mexico legislature. That one, the sponsor is Mr. Representative Derek Lente, and those four legislations that I mentioned, they implement the mandate, they implement the decision that was decided by the New Mexico courts, and it goes back to funding, and it goes back to working with tribal governments. So it's that legislation supports that initiative, and it supports those legislation that's in the New Mexico legislature now. And then the third thing, how can we apply this to the state of Arizona? I researched just a little bit about it, because I went back to searched a little bit about it, and I wouldn't know much more about it. I don't know if Dodie or some other department knows a lot more, but as far as I know, there's an Office of Indian Education within the Arizona Department of Education, and they do have an Indian Education Act as well. But when I researched this issue for the state of Arizona, it seems like they have a lot more on their website. Like, there's a strategic plan, there's reports, there's collaboration efforts with tribal communities, and so it's really detailed for that. website that I've been researching. Of course, so it seems like how it looks now is the state of Arizona is really progressing compared to New Mexico. That's how I interpret it. And but so that's where I'm at, Chair. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chatabeda. On the legislation, please attach the tribal remedy framework to the legislation as an exhibit. The other is, again, Regis Pecos convened people from the office of the president and vice president, as well as the president of Navajo Technical University, Gwinnett College, and members of DODI, as well as the HES committee. We did have input to the initial draft, and there's good aspects that were included in this tribal remedy framework. And from there, we never saw the draft, only until a few weeks ago. And it's been finalized, and that's the reason pushing forward to endorse this tribal remedy framework. I do have my LDA, Mario Atencio, who's also been following this real closely. Chiche, Mario. Are you on the call? I'm really having a problem with, I think, bills 84, 85, 86, and 87. Those were the ones that passed. And one of them funded the school district about $519,000. $400,000 were used by the school districts to increase teacher salaries and were never applied to basically help implement the findings of the Yazzie Martinez judge's order. And so that's where the other research, American Indian Education Institute, they had the slides of 107 bills introduced, and these 4 that you cited went to the governor for signature. And if we could cite that particular research in this legislation, and that would be the reason for issuing the directive. 107 legislations introduced, 4 went to the governor's desk for signature. The rest either never made it out of the House, and if they did, the Senate never put it, the Senate Education Committee never put it on their agenda.
So part of this whole effort is to show that there is an outright reluctance by the state legislature to implement the judge's order. And I had sent you the research slides from Dr. Glenaba Martinez. That has to be part of this legislation. To show that there is this outright attitude that our students don't matter. Even especially with what's stated in the New Mexico Constitution. So the bills that you cited, they're signed and they're done. The other aspect I wanted you to cover was the fact that in the tribal remedy framework, there was other aspects of how tribal nations' education departments could collaborate with public school districts. And that's in the website that's regarding the also I can't remember the lawyer's name at this point in time. So are you still working remote, Mr. Abeda?
Yes, I'm still working remote.
Okay. Shache Mario Atencio, are you on the call?
Yes, Chairman. So thank you. I just sent over those slides over to you, Mr. Chairman and Vice Chair Slater. I don't have I don't have council's email. So once I get that email, I'll send. I sent both the slides that you just mentioned, and the 2021 post summit executive report from IIE as presented from the meeting that you attended, Chairman.
And again, thank you.
Chair, this is Dana. Can I say something?
Yes, Ms. Barbara, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Mr. Abeda is working remotely, and he comes in later in the week, but he is in Tahajale, so was where he's working remotely. So there may be some opportunities, since you guys are also out in that direction. I don't know how close, but maybe there could be some meetup there. But for my own clarification, I'm a little confused. If you want, certainly you want a bill supporting implementation of the tribal remedy framework, etc. That I understand. Do you also want a separate legislation that supports the passage of certain bills?
Well,
and this is where I need clarification. They were introduced, this 84, no, 87, 86, and there was a, those were classified as they responded. There are other bills, and this is way, and that's how come I'm questioning Mr. Abeda. Those bills, they basically, the 84, 85, 86, 87, they made it to the governor's desk for signature.
Okay.
And the other website, Chiche Mario Atencio, the other website, the Dr. Aliena, I don't have my notes with me. Oh gosh. The one that basically was with the finance.
Chairman, so if I may, are you talking about the Transform New Mexico website?
Yes. Yes, that particular website. And Miss Barbara, we both my legislative district assistant Mario Atencio and Mr. Abeda could certainly meet up.
Okay.
Either tomorrow or Wednesday in Albuquerque.
I think, Chair, that sounds like a good idea, but I'm hoping if he can work it into his schedule that Mr. Abeda will be out in Twin Arrows on Wednesday. So perhaps they could work on, either meeting at Twin Arrows. I don't know if Mario will be there, but perhaps they could meet up in Tahajale tomorrow morning or something, or at least do a one-on-one call. That might be good also.
Yes.
Okay.
That would work. And Ms.
Okay,
Bobroff, I have long pending commitments for the 4th, so I won't be to Twin Arrows. So that's one item.
Okay. Okay, that sounds like a doable plan for for Chad and Mario to somehow figure out either by phone or in person that they can sit down and parse this out. Because Mr. Abeda is well on his way, as you can see with the what he provided. Now we're just at a point of tailoring it into what you yourself and the committee wants. And so I think that can be done relatively quickly, but we got to get the details right. So thank you,
Yes.
Chair.
Thank you. With that, Mr. Abeda, I guess the other part is this other aspect of the tribal remedy framework where tribal nations can work closely with New Mexico PED, collaborate, and then the Navajo Nation can work with the public school districts for their school districts to acknowledge tribal sovereignty in education. And then as well, how to also work with the Navajo Nation communities. That's the other aspect that is so different. And then the other is what Regis Pecos had talked about. He talked about the aspect of providing financial stability to the school districts to also be able to, in the aspect of providing college and career ready instruction, there was that talk about having a waiver of tuition for tribal nation students who attend the state of New Mexico post-secondary institutions. That should also be a prime ask as we do the second legislation. And I'll have Legislative District Assistant Mario get in contact with you regarding that effort. At the same time, there was effort to, on the inside, there was, we had gotten a request for amending Title 10 and also the plan of operation for Doty. And Mr. Ron Haven had been working on that. And how do we then look at it to where there is collaboration, there is acceptance of Navajo education sovereignty that is recognized by the public school districts as we institute Navajo Nation education sovereignty. Mr. Ron Haven, we had talked about that. Do you have an update on that particular item?
Mr. Chair and members of HESI, good morning. I certainly have an update, and I did send some changes, organizational changes to Department of Justice. Ms. Kinsella, I'm not sure she's on the line or not. Essentially, DOJ does not have a particular problem, and I also have forwarded to you a copy of my changes, and there's some minor additions as well to the plan of operation. What I have also added to the resolution, at least the plan of operation, certain things, and I don't want to spend a lot of time because I don't want to take too much of your time on the agenda item here that you're discussing right now, but just a short update. What I have, it's ready to go. The only issue that I am having right now, DOJ has asked me my thoughts on whether my revisions require the plan of operation to go back to the Board of Education. Now, the Board of Education is the one that passed its plan of operation and asked HESI to approve it according to Title II. That is basically how I got the package, is that recommendation, and sponsored by the chair, Daniel Souther, and I did the work, and it's ready to go. So that's the only issue I have currently, and I don't have a particular problem of releasing the document as is to HESI. However, I will need some guidance on whether the decision is to go ahead and ask Board of Education to go ahead and review it again. There's no change in the substance of what the board is asking that be included. Certainly, we can add the amendment in the in respect to the states and also Navajo Nation education sovereignty. We can certainly include that as the bill is read into the record. But it is ready to go. If you want me to go ahead and have Doty, not Doty, but the Board of Education review it and have another resolution forwarded to HESI, I can certainly do that. The other option is to go ahead and release it for HESI consideration, and basically the Board of Education can and Doty can certainly make comments when the bill is being considered by HESI. That's another alternative, and I will leave it up to HESI and certainly the board chair, Honorable Daniel. So that's where I'm at, and it is complete. The bill is complete, and like I said, I've sent a copy of the draft bill that I finalized, and I have also sent all my notes insofar as where the changes had to be made, okay? In my opinion, certain changes had to be made for clarity. The other thing I did send is a copy of the proposed bill as is. So for comparison purposes and to just simply follow my notes as to where the changes have occurred. But it is certainly something that needed to be done for organizational purposes. So that's where the status is. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of HESI.
Committee members, yes, we're again, the aspect of the committee wanting to make changes to Title 10 that would advance educational sovereignty. Thank you, Mr. Haven, for providing that guidance. In the current revision of the plan of operation, with respect to Head Start, we had another legislation that just had amendments to Head Start plan of operation, and we were asked to pull that. In the plan of operation for Doty, the current draft, do we have any reference to Head Start?
Chair, is that question for Mr. Abeda?
No, that question is for Mr. Haven. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just give me a second. I just need to pull the bill up, but I don't recall any specific reference to Head Start, so I can just double check. Give me about a minute or so.
I'm thinking about it. They were saying you can't. I'm hoping that a lot of delegates will be there. Because if we don't, he's going to say, veto Elon. I'm the discussion. That's my concern, Chair. Okay. Maybe he'll explain himself. I don't know.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Mr. Haven.
Yeah, I've quickly looked through the actual document itself. I'm hoping there's somebody from Doty on the line just to correct me if I am mistaken. But the only place that I have reference, there is some reference to Head Start, is if you take a look at the chart, the organizational chart, there is reference to Navajo Head Start there, and it's under the assistant superintendent, the program. Okay, so I have a copy of the organizational chart, and it is a program. Apparently, it's listed under the Office of Superintendent of Schools, and then off to the right side, there's another box that indicates that the Head Start is going to be under the Assistant Superintendent, Navajo Head Start. So that's the way the organizational chart is, and I can certainly continue working on the bill itself. If there's anything that needs to be incorporated, certainly I think we can do that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Haven. The reason I'm asking is related to Head Start. We had the Office of the Auditor General complete review, and there was a response by Department of Head Start, and there was major concerns. And as far as I know, Head Start hadn't responded to that CAP review. And that's the reason I'm concerned about. And that review basically is asking about central administration.
Mr. Chair?
And the costs associated with central administration. And so that's how come I'm asking about it. We may end up doing, and how do we put it in the legislation that the plan of operation for Head Start will come under different legislation?
Mr. Chair?
Yes. Mr. Haven.
Yeah, just a little bit of clarification. This, I probably should forward a copy of this draft to you all, but what it is if you take a look at Title 10, you do have references to the Navajo Nation Tribal Council enacting legislation for the Board of Education. Okay, you're going to see these references in Title 10, Navajo Nation Code. Okay, now what is being proposed here by the Board of Education is references to a plan of operation. What I've done is reviewed the plan of operation as proposed. Now, these are not amendments, okay? They're not amendments to plan Title 10, okay? What they are is just indications that the Board of Education has a more deep operational document, the plan of operation, okay? It's based on what the provisions that currently exist in Title 10. You see, if you look at a number of organizations, and I don't have a listing with me right in front of me, but there are certain entities that are created by the Navajo Nation Council, and then within that, what they call enabling legislation, you'll see specific language that an oversight committee has authority over enacting a plan of operation that is consistent with what the council has enacted. So what we have now current is what HESI is going to work on is basically a plan of operation. Now this reference is in one of your directives back in the fall of last year that the Board of Education does need a plan of operation. That reference is in one of the directives of the council's resolution. Now, with that being said, I mentioned a little bit of reorganization and in respect to your document. The organizational chart certainly does have reference to the Navajo Nation, Navajo Head Start. Now, this document that you have currently deals primarily exclusively with the Board of Education, okay? The Board of Education's functions, its purposes, and what it does, okay? It's not specific to Head Start, although there are certainly, like I've indicated, there's reference to Head Start in the organizational chart, and also throughout. No, I shouldn't say throughout, but in the actual document, the first draft, and I did do some revisions. There is some reference, and specifically, I didn't change the wording on this, but it's going to be some reference to Head Start as well in under your purpose section. It does indicate very that the board's function is HESI's program. The governing body there is going to be the Board of Education, and that's underlined there, and that is something that references that provision. I know references one of your resolutions back in 2013, HESI 035-13, in respect to that specific authority.
Okay.
And, yeah,
go ahead.
And the Board of Education, it does indicate that it does serve as the governing body for the Head Start program. I do apologize, I didn't mention that earlier, but basically it does indicate under the purpose section, but this is one of those reorganization. I've indicated I've reorganized it a little bit, so this is an area that it should be listed under duties and responsibilities, so I do apologize. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. All right, committee members. Ms. Ghani, did you want to have time for comment?
Yad Ehbene Chairman So, members of Health, Education, Human Services Committee, good morning. Yad Ado Mr. Halona for opening us up in prayer. Thank you so very much. We definitely are enjoying the wonders of rain and what that means for us as Native people. Thank you so much for the question. I do have a number of Department of Dene Education staff members on the call with me. Dr. Calvin White, I also have Roy Tracy, Matthew So as our legislative analyst. I also have the Navajo Nation Board of Education President, Ms. Priscilla Benali, also on the line listening in. So since you have asked Chairman So about the tribal sovereignty and the implementation as spoken to from the Yazi Martinez lawsuit and the court mandates, we, especially here at Doty, have been studying the subject, and most recently we had an opportunity to hear updates from then Secretary Ryan Stewart as he presented to the Legislative Finance Committee a couple of Fridays ago in Bernalillo. Subsequent to that update, we were also able to sit down and have a dedicated block of time discussing the Navajo Nation's perspective particularly the Tribal Education Department, and the ask that we have surrounding the educational improvements. Just really looking at it from Navajo Nation perspective. We met with Regis Pecos and Mr. Chino as well. For that, we were very thankful for a frank discussion around what it means for Navajo Nation to have tribal sovereignty in education. So with the Indian Education Act in New Mexico, the act itself speaks to an increase in tribal involvement and control over schools. And I think this landmark case, Yazi Martinez, and the ruling really is precedent and an opportunity for Department of the Net Education and Navajo Nation to move forward the needs to improve education for our Navajo students. We talk about tribal sovereignty and the tribal remedy framework that has been established under the leadership of Regis Pecos and others, the Tribal Education Alliance and Leadership Institutes in New Mexico have really band together to voice the concern from the Pueblos, Navajo Nation, to stand together in asking the state and how we want these inequities in education to be remedied. The tribal remedy framework certainly helps us operationalize what that governance piece over education, what that looks like. So we definitely are asking and stand with tribes for school governance, accountability, and funding decisions. Through these partnerships, we're asking the states to honor, enforce, and support tribal consultation, and to have that process better formalized. And then also a continuation of collaboration and consent in the district's decision-making in ways that we assert our tribal sovereignty. At this time, we don't get solicited for input surrounding the curricula, how our children are assessed, how they are deemed successful or not, and how these title dollars are utilized and how we hold these schools accountable when our children continue to lag behind. And so those are issues and concerns that we would like to be further have delineated and articulated under the tribal remedy framework. As I stated, we've been having a lot of conversations internally here at Department of the Net Education as to what that looks like. So you spoke to a few pieces already, which addresses the federal and state funding that our children generate. They're Native American students, and there are certain funds that come through. Always, they don't reach the public school setting, and our students are not doing better academically because of those. And so we want to institute and having the tribe seat at these tables of conversation within the respective LEAs and having a say in joint governance and accountability framework where the tribal voices are heard. So it very much is an equity issue and concern. And for that, we have been working diligently for a few of the priorities. I mentioned that we had a discussion with Regis Pecos. There are a few areas that we specifically spoke to. Our time actually was limited to about 2 hours with him. Most immediately, as we talk about the 3 overarching areas, which I know that you all are familiar with, but for the benefit of those who may not have access to the materials, I just want to be able to mention those 3 overall umbrella areas. First of all, the Tribal Remedy Framework asks for a shared responsibility and increased tribal control over the schooling of Native children. More specifically, it is asking for tribal education departments, in our instance that is DOTI, to have an investment and a capacity building of our department here. And then also investment in pipeline for the Native professionals who can hold these positions so that we have the capacity to speak eloquently and comprehensively in addressing the needs of our students. And under that umbrella, there's also a request for recurring state funding directly for tribal education departments through the school funding formula at risk factor. Our students are identified to be at risk populations, and we want to be able to have those funds channeled through departments of education within the tribal communities so that we have an ability to have how those funds are utilized, and then also the accountability pieces so that our children are surely benefiting from those. The third item under that umbrella is a local governance and accountability framework that formalizes collaboration between tribes and districts. Native technical assistance centers to support the tribal education departments in schools. We currently, from Department of Diné Education, have tribal consultation with our LEAs. And it is very much specific to how they utilize their title funding. But the education of our students extends beyond that. We need to be able to speak directly to the curriculum, the ways that our children are assessed, and then having access to data as well. I've often said this, Chairman, so that we need to be able to have a repository of data for our own children here at Department of Diné Education, our own staff members here accessing that information and analyzing it. We get to derive what we believe that it is showing, and we make recommendations to New Mexico Public Education Department. At this time, it is very much a one-way approach being utilized by New Mexico Public Education Department. They have the data, they tell us what they think it means, and oftentimes these dollars follow or directives follow. And so we need to be able to change that around so that we have our own experts internally accessing the information, analyzing, and making the recommendations to the state so that we have an appropriate redress to these areas that have been identified within the tribal remedy framework that addressed the Yazzie Martinez case. The second umbrella speaks to community-based education, those that are created by and centered within the tribal communities. Investment in tribal libraries as community education centers that provide provisions for extended learning, technology access, career and support services. Investment in early education programs and services developed and delivered by tribal communities, and full tribal authority over early childhood services. Again, the capacity building for tribal community-based networks to deliver integrated student supports, including social health services, formal coordination, and contracting with public schools. Those are all pieces under the community-based education. And so the internal conversations have been surrounding the proposition to have Navajo submit for capital outlay dollars for our Navajo Head Start centers. I know that that is one area that is a passion of yours. With the capital outlay dollars, you know, we want funding to establish the early childhood centers. We talk about the need for wraparound services for families. If our families are healthy, we have our children have a healthy start in their academic careers. And so we want to be able to promote a request for these capital outlay dollars under the tribal remedy framework. If we can have quality early childhood experiences for our students, it places them that much further ahead and ready for kindergarten curricula when they reach kindergarten level. So it is very important that we continue to collaborate and have a strong voice in submission for our redress as it meets the Navajo Nation's needs. The third and final area that is promoted and developed under the Tribal Remedy Framework speaks to a balanced, culturally and linguistically relevant education that revitalizes and sustains the strengths of children and their communities. Most importantly, the policies to address institutional racism, development of trauma-informed practices, implementation of Indigenous justice models to end the marginalization and the school push-out of Native children. There are studies that have been referenced for the Tribal Remedy Framework surrounding this point in which our students are not always accessing the support services to be successful. They have fallen off on the wayside to the point that they become disengaged and they drop out. And so to bring back those students so that they reach their potential is very much an interest of all of our tribal partners in this request for redress through the Tribal Remedy Framework. Furthermore, an investment in tribally led curriculum development centers and Navajo language programs that are operated in partnership with Native higher education institutions and programs, addition of a Navajo language factor to the school funding formula, full tribal authority over Native language, culture, and programs. We currently have the Office of Standards Assessment and Curriculum here at Department of Diné Education. One of the ways that we would want this to be addressed under the Tribal Remedy Framework immediately is to ask the New Mexico Public Education Department's school districts to implement what we have for teaching of Navajo language culture standards. We also have a set of assessments that measure the students' proficiency. We would also ask the schools implement those. And then also the data sharing freely beyond that so that we can continue to gauge what the needs are surrounding the education of our students. The final point under that umbrella relates to investment in a pipeline for Native teachers, educational leaders, and staff, mandatory anti-racism and Indian Education Act training for all teachers and educational leaders. We want to be able to have a tuition-free education system for our Native students who attend in New Mexico higher education institutes. In a classroom, when you have students seeing folks of the same color skin being successful and teaching them, our children see themselves in these roles. They see themselves successful. They know where to go. So with that in mind, it is very imperative that as we garner the tribal sovereignty and operationalizing the governance of our own children's education under Title 10, under Navajo Tribal Sovereignty Act, those are all spoken to. We've never had an opportunity to operationalize that. And so I think this is a very much pivotal point in education for us as we embark upon working alongside other tribal communities to press the urgency in identification of what is the best way to redress and address going forward how we educate our children. So that is the study that I have been able to pull together. Chairman, so acting superintendent the Tribal Remedy Framework New Mexico State tribal communities through Regis Pecos also have had an opportunity to attend a few of the Tribal Education Alliance. AD Yazi Martinez, Adet Benahod, the Nahalchaniyaj Betin Linigi Hait Uhudos Al. Nishikodo the Nelchaniyaj Osthaigi Ayat is that AD Bibizad Yehosindole. Ado Adeho Dilzindole, Dita Il Deto Etaol in Ligi. A Ado Kodobin Dale Nishigi is do Hajoya Achanizindole, Abinach AD Beson on Deto Uhidos Ahigi. It places us in the positions to understand fully what these needs are so that we are in the best seats for advocacy at the legislative levels with our funding systems as well. So the Tribal Remedy Framework is a great opportunity for us to promote how we want to be able to have a greater sovereignty in education of our students. And most immediately, the Kuja Azka Jiki AD assessments, I don't have that Edo standards, Ado Kwagisto, Navajo Education Information System, Ben Kilhahodit Edo Lech, AD Ultratnas, Nilikon Hachinda Ultraita, but test scores, Ada Kuja Yahanahin Deto Lech, Adoi Anahe Kodor research on Linigi, Anahinel Ka. We need to be able to study what's working and what needs to be improved, what adjustments are necessary. Adot o den hot o lehen hit ninit an hikodo eba ehonil zin ako ajigi e besa banande. So there's specific requests that we are making for recurring funding. I did hear the conversation surrounding some of the House bills, 85 through 84 to 87. Yat ado nasa hijota dinez data. Those numbers, the House bills, looking at the new legislative season. But most importantly, as we continue to engage and have the dialogue with Mr. Pecos and others from the Legislative Finance Committee, we want to be able to make sure that there's inclusion of these funding mechanisms that will fully fund the remedies that we are asking for under Yazi Martinez. So those would be the specific information as it relates to where we have been here at Department of Dene Education thus far. I also did hear your conversations about the Title 10 amendments. Edo aje at ane hinchebe has anigi netok as ado hait ago yakodo tribal remedy framework, but that ninigi. There may be some added areas, there may be some added duties and responsibilities that may not have been spoken for. I thank you for your leadership, for reaching out and then having a conversation about this important topic. We have heard the announcement of the Secretary of Education in New Mexico, Mr. Ryan Stewart, we have a need to express the educational priorities from Navajo Nation. I also look to your leadership to also engage Governor Lujan as well, so that we can have these educational priorities known to the legislators within New Mexico State under the framework of the tribal remedy and the Yazi Martinez mandates. So I just wanted to be able to give the quick updates. The conversations here at Department of Dene Education indeed have been lengthy. I do invite you and members of Health, Education, Human Services Committee to join us at any time so that we have all representation of leadership to have these important discussions.
Thank you. So yes, Ms. Ghani, adding some more items to what we really need to look at. I guess the other aspect is if you could also engage some aspects of what you presented to Mr. Abeda, that would also help. As far as fleshing out, making the best statement regarding the tribal remedy framework and all the aspects of implementing such recommendations. The other is way back in the 90s, the U.S. Department of Education used to just send the forms for all the title funds to the office of the chairman, the office of the president. And there was never any local input regarding the usage. It was just a form that was sent, the president signed it, and off they went. And so that's where, at the time, we had the U.S. Department of Education require the school districts to approach the chapters within the school district to sign the budget and the title funds. So in regard to Cuba Independent School Districts, the 3 chapter presidents were given those forms and the budgets, and they're also given a presentation of the usage. So in that manner, we could also, and right now I don't know how Gallup-McKinley County School District or Central Consolidated School District, Bloomfield, or Municipal School District, as well as Cibola, handles those. Maybe it's the Indian Education Committees that sign off on those documents. But in the area that I represent, specifically the 3 chapters that are served by Cuba Independent School Districts, the JOM budget is presented, the Title 7, 3, and I think it's Title 1 that are presented to the chapters for their signatures. And perhaps we need to go back to the U.S. Department of Education to make sure that the aspect of the title funds usage that you brought up would be available to Department of Diné Education. Committee members.
Shajab, on.
Yes, Ms. Patricia Ghani, you have the floor.
Thank you again, Chairman. So yes, we currently, Department of Diné Education initiates the tribal consultations with our LEAs on an annual basis. And what I understand is that it is done twice a year. And as required under the Every Student Succeeds Act, Section 2538, we are to do a meaningful tribal consultation surrounding how these funds are being utilized, the dollars that we speak about that our children generate, and the services that our students partake in for improved academic outcomes. So the chapters have not They don't do the tribal consultations. We do as the Tribal Education Department. What we foresee going forward is that, first of all, an understanding between us and New Mexico Public Education Department and also U.S. Department of Ed that we are more than a checkbox. We don't want the forms being channeled through for the purposes of checking a box. Our children are more than a checkbox. There are plenty of studies out there that promote and support that position. And having our students access these right and comprehensive support systems within the schools. So on an annual basis at the beginning of the year, we have been engaging the LEAs, at least as I've observed this past year, that is a function that Department of Diné Education serves. And so we want to move beyond just that too, rather than just these annual points of contact for tribal consultation. Title 10. New Mexico بالخهود زوجة أجل بهز آني تاس زهيجي خشلة دولني جن هي كدون خالشني يجد بالنا النشيجي tribal communities بالخدو أول خدولة أبيك يالك دولة ليجي أي خجو بيتاس زوجو أبيك أهدولة. So we have yet to actualize what that meaningful consultation looks like. We want to have a hand and say in what the curriculum materials are. What are the standards rather than being imposed? So D, need a common core standards. No, a copy yadi tribal languages, do culture. We can address those with the state education department directly. And so indeed, there will be a number of statutorial changes that must be made in order that we have these tribal consultations to be brought and pushed forward so that we have an equal involvement so that we can realize and actualize what that tribal sovereignty in education means. So I just wanted to add that much more information in this context, Chair So.
Thank you, Ms. Ghani. all this is good, but the ones where you basically schedule tribal consultation, it was with Gallup McKinley County Schools and Central Consolidated Schools. There was never one scheduled for Cuba Independent School District, Bloomfield Municipal Schools. So in that respect, be careful on how you state tribal consultation. Tribal consultation starts at the local level. And like I said, in those 3 chapters, the administration from Cuba Independent School District participates on a regular basis in presenting their programs. And again, the sign-off on JOM and other title funds are accomplished by the chapter president as a vote of chapter membership. So, and again, personnel from DOTI need to reach out to the smaller school districts. And perhaps you need to delegate staff members to basically do that aspect, not only for the New Mexico side, but with the Arizona and Utah sites. There is a tremendous need to collaborate. And we want to move from consultation to collaboration. I think that's the buy-in for the public school district, boards of education and administration. Again, these aspects of we are in charge type of thing, collaborate. That would be the main principle that we need to go forward with in establishing and working toward education sovereignty, because we do have so many different types of educational institutions on the Navajo Nation. On our end, there was from the federal to the Navajo Nation, there is a published paper about tribal consultation. And Speaker Damon and I are sponsoring legislation to refine what consultation means to the Navajo Nation. We are one of 574 tribal sovereigns. We are one of the few that have a 3-branch government. And right now the framework is consultation goes to OPVP. But for us as a 3-branch government, the committees of the council and the Navajo Nation Council are the policy makers. And so that's why tribal consultation should also include the legislative branch. So those are some fine developments that we're proceeding on. And that's the aspect we have to go forward on. Committee members.
Chairman.
Do you have any? Oh.
Delegate So, I got a question. When you get time, get to me. Thank you.
Oh. Yeah, you jumped on the phone call. You text, at 11:17, he was on the call. And I forgot to mention that Honorable Wanika is sitting with me in the Navajo Nation Council chambers, along with Mr. Leonard Mose. So we do have full membership present again. Go ahead, Otto So, Honorable Otto So, Vice Chair of Law and Order Committee, representing the big chapter of Tuba City.
Ms. Gani, for your presentation, and I wish that if you can, just request that your presentation, if you could email me that document so that I could refer back to the beginning of your presentation. But concerning towards the end of your presentation, it was more geared to the New Mexico children. Ako ade Office of the Education ade do ade ashin son ke hodini do ade be hot abai tsilon yinna hisha ade ahbiya khazoje. Navajo children that live in the western portion or even in Arizona portion of the Navajo Nation. First of all, I really did not hear an update to the General Counsel to the Navajo Nation Council pertaining to any type of educational dialogue to the full body of the council yet. I'm sure you come to this committee as they serve as your oversight. But we do have children out there that we represent. The regular council, the hadit ada, nihicha adi hanne ndi ah, akoho ya papan nach ya ada shin sago so lede nadahi kahda ade inda iskiti khalit hada ay aj yindaha ak. And what I'm alluding to is the Indian education dollars that come down the pipeline. I was just at my chapter meeting yesterday, and I explained to them that our children, to whatever school districts our Indian children decides to go to school at. Akoho e kongo go tatnas nilahas ki dashin sago ati hinda kito to etin halit ela danzen. Akoho that local level, and that's the same thing that Chairman So has alluded to. How is the local informed in a lot of these decisions that's made by Dodi? Ash added ya added nihot anish ash added ya not ahiki added ya pe landa itleto pebich ya ishan adalne. Number two is that I really speak to and I agree with Chairman So. Legislative branch, you're talking about policy change that needs to be changed statutorily. Is it the tribal policy that you're referring to, or is it the federal policies that are governed from the federal government? And not federal policy requires tribal leaders to be at the table. I don't echo AD quite Babanache ya halit la equa babanache combishmas and ya Nikadoja. Today in Washington DC. We have some delegates up there that will be on the Hill. And these are vital, critical moments that I believe Dodi should be able to be aware of when tribal leaders are up in Washington, so that the advocacy at the federal level with our congressmen could be communicated, so that we can all advocate on behalf of Indian education. We all know that the Bureau of Indian Affairs, through the BIE program, employees cannot lobby. The strategy between Dodi, there's probably some sort of authority that the council has given you guys to provide consultation. These consultation, what is the outcome on some of these past consultations that happen? Have they have these consultation that was provided by the entity you represent? Has it improved the testing score of our Navajo children overall? You spoke about how we can hold tribal, how we could try to keep or hold state schools responsible. One way to hold them responsible is the way to try to withhold the monies, the Indian dollars that is allocated to them. That's one way. That way the nation has the attention of whether it's Gallup School District, Tuba City Unified School District, or Central Consolidated School District. If they don't want to really enhance and try to improve the quality of education for American Indians, maybe if we have leverage to say that we have to say yes in order for the funds to be released to that school district, whether it's JOM or regular Indian education dollars. Onsen ako ho ti jinihitaz anja onash. Adonda, I know that the CEO of the board of Dodi is untouchable. And that has always been my question. How do we hold the superintendent of the Navajo Nation accountable for maybe test scores falling on the Navajo Nation? Because the president nor the council has the authority to try to hold them accountable. What type of mechanism is in place to hold that individual who holds that seat accountable for maybe if testing scores are failing on the Navajo Nation, whether it's a BIE, grant school, or public school? She's an educator, and she's been in the classroom. She has autistic children that she oversees. She sees the holes that are in the system that allows to push our children just through the system, whether it's aging out of that grade and so forth. But the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and I believe the state system does that also, are just pushing our children through the system and passing them, but not providing the quality education to our children. But as federal workers, we can't lobby our Congress. We can't do this and that, or else we will get written up and so forth. From our side, Washington, Lenny, how are we making sure we are holding them to the trust responsibility to provide the quality education to our Navajo children who are within the Navajo Nation's jurisdiction? Based has anda anit eda hot ada hade when each hadit ada hot an hinch nin an jondo lis ako ikiti tinki is lato lis to kom kiti tinki ko in late at the United kit. I don't know at the local level how much public education is Dodi doing at the local level so that the children's parents are part of the discussion at the local level, because they're the parents. They're the ones that get these children back home at the end of the day. And some parents, I don't that the other aspect is to how to try to improve that, to try to get our Navajo mothers and fathers out there part of our children's education. And not shnini. Do hadit ego da kwata ya yanagado ya adola ya lange is inkoko. Guarantee you that these children are gonna be falling through the system. There's gonna be holes that are gonna be falling through, and that's when the system of the school, whichever school, they just start pushing these kids through the system, like aging out criteria and so forth. Uncle, I don't serve on HES. Our Western Agency representative is Honorable Paul Begay, and I'm sure he's providing and making decision on behalf of the Western Navajo Caucus. But as even at my chapter meeting, Dana, my chapter official goes, we don't even get any travel program giving us updates on what's going on in Window Rock. And that alludes to when I indicate the world only turns in Window Rock. halot halit ego la ate the nedo but haneta. Uncle ho ego on kids. Uncle na hapik ade based on each that it through the general funds. And we approve the outside external dollars coming in also. So when at some point does tribal leadership say, okay, we've been giving you money, we've been giving you this, we've been giving you that, you're a tribal employee, you get tribal leave and things like that are shigi. So how has the program improved the quality of education for our Navajo students, whether they're going to school in Gallup, in Coconino County, or Coconino High School in Flagstaff, or Petra Vista in Farmington, or Shiprock High School, the consolidated schools, or in Tuba City. Meaning that data that information is not given to the local level. And Donna, like I said, my chapter meeting, those are some of the questions from some of my chapter officials. And they gave, maybe if you can expand on that, is something that I really, really would like to see. And maybe Dodie giving information at the local level so that, the local level understands the system and how the current structure is set up for the Office of the Education. Only the masando chebenan kindo ade hot ego shiaho even insta aron that needne nikalchine do yego you do the helzeta. Not traditionally, I'm not talking about the cultural aspect. I'm talking about who they are and what they are. Who they are. And in if our children do not know who they are, what they are, somebody else is going to dictate to them and say, oh, you're an Indian. You're Indian what ye. Bikaya atani ol ya. Bazadi hayai ol ya. Banahaga ba ol atani ol ya. E ol ya Indian janila. Ne the nandle na by hondle shino. Oya nashish kid and so. To this day, it really, really, really makes me think. Got to Washington, D.C., and I realized what he was talking about. And I had this bellboy ask me, who are you? What are you? Why are you here? Oh, you're an American. You're a Navajo, Native American. Yes. We're here in the federal at the budget and finance at the budget formulation to beg for money from the federal government to increase Indian education dollars and other $638 that come through the pipeline. And I remember that bellboy telling me, you shouldn't be on your hands and knees and asking for these funds from the federal government. You should be telling the federal government your rent is going up. And to know who we really truly are before we leave the nation, because somebody else is going to tell us this is what you are. I believe I did this, but I appreciate this conversation and hearing the tail end of your report, Ms. Ghani. Yeah.
Yeah, Cecilia, thank you for taking your conversation to be inclusive of what education is across the Navajo Nation. Ms. Ghani, you wish to respond?
Thank you, Chairman. So, the Honorable Delegate Otoso from Western I appreciate your interest and passion for the education of our students. What about Arizona? And also the need for collaboration amongst the branches and programs for a unified messaging around educational priorities on Navajo Nation. And then what improvements have been made for student achievement with DOTI and involvement. I believe those are the areas of your questions. Adodi ilchiniyajan no sele uhidol asigi do ajibna annishigi is yego bedzil khala eyad amado je ado ache another zando another has teen it's ado igas ado and families not tin is aunt el ado chinla as aunt on sakes lo ado bitin don nishigi lo aunt ko shin benach bebedzil a konde di den dempel khahod zo adot an hiti betishlijni blenigi khait nas di kha ado khait na khalchniaj abbe ag in de dado lel Eishi da yisi et sesele do ochot ababan tahakes na khalchne no selen blenigi di ultha ag in de da jaad yisi ado how they can be contributing citizens to the overall greatness of our nation. Aishi, I think that's what we are after in these conversation and the lines of work that we all do. Yazi Martinez, Ajin Iltsoz. New Mexico State, Aja Beso Chihitit Ahigi. Do Hehost Ego Nahalchini Beso Bichit to quite services, materials, and resources. Education get yisnenigi be ochodon netligi beso na yisna. Ako aje han so shina aska ado beni ilsos New Mexico Public Education Department. Ado AD, the landmark case of Yazi Martinez, eben nachit nahot. Honorable Delegate. So just wanted to share with you the conversation and the item that was placed on the agenda for us to speak to today. New Mexico, tribal remedy framework is nigo ya dibetsin istlajita hil so. Khait edi nalye that ado hajo beso benda ajnisto do hajo chahidest ane. Aja woked ado din nas khodes ago khait abena annisto lel. Khay yayen dolnish that the Tribal Education Department igish ado State Department khait yisi ikhiln dolnishigi aja yisi be atahwil net khodo Tribal Remedy Framework isnigi. That conversation, I believe, started in 2018. Conducting the research internally. Those are the documents that I came across and the work that DOTI program managers and other staff members have completed so far. Ado Kodo Regis Pecos do Aja Tribal Education Alliance that Yotaingi Ado that document and position of Department of the Net Education and then also Navajo Board of Education as well. Ajanal Tosigi Nakans. Ako yet by Yashkit Bishitol Adgo. Ado di tribal sovereignty in education. It very much is a huge undertaking. All the states that we work with, Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico, and the Indian Education Act, Ikot o aton de hajo be ichiltadil nishta. Di besona gado di kwaja policy making behas ani idad neigi do sato a iyisi in tanda. So you ask what has happened to improve student outcomes. AIDS is the al-seben hije in nahont I. Aj khwashtan tabadi nido in that the need zins go biga. Kwa ekit is it an hina ahit zil. Edo do bohoned zanda. We need to engage the state levels to assert the Navajo Nation's position and presence in the education policy making surrounding our Navajo students. So that's a first in moving the needle around how we can get our students to achieve. Beso, ado policy, what types of accountability that are being pressed upon our schools. Adot di public schools ingi Hashint school superintendent, school principal. Zayanet do hajo nchilnal nishta alto. That's an area that needs to be very much articulated and defined. Who's the authority and who do we report to? You make a great suggestion in having the funds come to Navajo Nation so that we have a mechanism being that funding channel to our schools. And then making sure that there is follow through within our respective local education agencies, the districts, the schools, so that they're complying. Those are the pieces that are not yet quite defined, which I'm very excited to see under this case of Yazi Martinez and the Tribal Remedy Framework. Once that falls into place with the possibilities of change to statutory and policy making, and that includes our Title 10 here, some areas not being included that may be new that we have to add on the state levels. And it requires a bold stance and a bold move. What does the nation want to see for its students? That's where we all have to stand together with that common understanding of what do we want for our kids, and so that we can approach these states in regard to how we exercise our sovereignty in education. So our students have not done very well when they're compared to their same age peers. By virtue of information that gets shared, achievement data. So on the how do we define achievement? How do we define success? They're Native Americans na be hundle the ne a aja ohol ahigi ohot a yisibel na annisho a sham na bitnes ta. How do we do that? And so the proposition there is to embed and asking, rather than asking, mandating our school systems here on Navajo to implement the net language culture standards. So annas adol kiln ha alchiniyaje the achievement level zigi ahonda ban sahakes. So thank you for making those points, honorable delegates. So I appreciate the passion that you have in your statements and requests as of today. We do deal with 3 different agencies at DODI. Title 10 does not have identification of specific authorities for DODI. deep sot hotol nilot ape osago undita kodo beson habe la adol bedet on niligi. It's not clearly defined. So this is an opportunity for us to have those conversations, recommendations, and solidify those going forward so that we can move the needle. So at this point, it is very much a matter of jurisdictional interpretations. We work with the state public schools. We work with BIE. So that is what we are very much looking for in our conversations here in promoting that tribal remedy framework. So as this becomes a clarified process with New Mexico Public Education Department, it should be a process to follow with Arizona Department of Education and then also Utah State Department of Education. Already, I do have a group of program managers within DOTI who've done an outreach to Superintendent of Public Instruction, Kathy Hoffman with ADE, to engage her around some of these concerns that we have moving forward with some possible policies as well, recommendations for those. So I very much appreciate the interest from Health, Education, Human Services Committee, OANI. We need to more closely work together. You know, I've only been here a year helping in my capacity as acting, and I'm very open to any other suggestions. Kundishni, you know, there's an email. We also have phone calls. You know, please don't be afraid to make that contact so that we can have these discussions around education needs for our students. So I just wanted to reply with those points, Chairman So. Thank you again, Honorable Delegate Otoso from Western Agency.
Thank you, Ms. Ghani. Committee members, do you have any statements, comments? If not, then the chair would be open for a motion to adopt the report that was presented. And FYI, legislative district assistant just text me, and conversation between Mr. Chad Abeda and Mr. Mario Tencio will also include Acting Superintendent Patricia Ghani regarding the legislation supporting the tribal remedy framework and the other aspects of what we need to support going forward. Committee members, to your side of the table.
I'll motion to accept the report, Delegate Slater.
Motion by Honorable Vice Chair Slater.
Second, Wanika.
Second by Honorable Edison Wanika. Comments, discussion, committee members? Going once, going twice, 3 times. Mr. Mose, roll call vote, please.
Honorable Paul Begay Jr.
Wait. Honorable Paul Begay, was that you?
No, that was not me, Chair.
Chair, so this is Chad Abeda from Office of Legislative Counsel. It was me, but that's okay.
Yeah, going forward, let's have you collaborate with Superintendent Ghani and LDA Mario Tencio. Okay. Okay, Mr. Mose, go ahead.
Honorable Paul Begay Jr.,
Delegate Begay votes green.
Honorable Paul Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Pernell Halona, Honorable Pernell Halona, Honorable Carl Russell Slater,
Green.
Honorable Carl Russell Slater votes green. Honorable Charlene So,
Green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Edison J. Wanika,
Green.
Honorable Edison J. Wanika votes green. Honorable Paul Begay Jr.,
Paul Begay votes green.
Honorable Paul Begay Jr. votes green. Chair votes, hold on, Honorable Pernell Halona, Chair vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you. Mr. Mose, let the record show a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed, and the chair not voting. With that, committee members, we will go on a 45-minute recess, and we'll reconvene at 1:50. Somebody do the math.
So, Chair, we'll
1:10.
reconvene at 1:15. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. That'll give us, Chair, Committee, Wanika, and myself a chance to grab something for lunch and then take care of other business. Are you going to come into Winderot, Zitsila, Honorable Slater?
Oh, I'm on my way in now.
Okay. I hear you got some great news to share too.
Yeah, I do. I see you guys. We'll celebrate.
Okay. All right.
When is the date?
Oh, I didn't catch that.
We are in. That was Honorable Paul Begay. Kahojin.
So when do we get back, Chair?
1:15.
Okay, thank you.
That'll give you a chance to drop a hook onto Lake Powell.
And it's a big 10 pole.
Hakushila, we are in recess.